We are living in a golden age of video game adaptations. So many are coming out so frequently, and almost all of them are, at the very least, pretty good. The Sonic movies have all done great. Fans really seem to enjoy the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I didn't know what was going on through most of it, but fans seem to enjoy it. And we even get great TV adaptations like Fallout, Arcane, Castlevania, and of course HBO's stellar adaptation of The Last of Us. And this quality is really amazing, especially when you consider the track record of video game adaptations in the past. Double Dragon, Street Fighter, a metric ton of Resident Evil movies, all landed with wet farts when they initially debuted. Although, I must admit, I think you can still find a lot to enjoy about those older video game adaptations. Like, I think Mortal Kombat is just dumb fun, especially if you're a big fan of classic martial arts movies like Enter the Dragon. And Silent Hill, while it's not that great of an adaptation when you compare it to the source material, if you ask any fan of the games, they'll tell you it absolutely has the spirit of the games. This is a great movie. It's actually one of my favorites as a big fan of the games. But yes, by and large, video game adaptations have not been great until very recently. And one project that everyone always loves to point to is 1993's Super Mario Bros. A movie that stopped its directors' careers dead in their tracks, put its entire cast and crew through torture, and scared Nintendo off from licensing film adaptations for 30 years. You've no doubt heard a lot of things about this movie, almost none of them good, but how many of you have actually seen it? I have seen this movie more times than I'd like to admit, and I think it's very misunderstood. I'll admit, it's a mess, but it is a special, once-in-a-lifetime kind of mess that somehow manages to create an undeniably unique vision that is greater than the sum of its parts. At least to me. If you watch my Wii U video, or you know me personally, you know that I have a tendency to like things that are kind of objectively dumb or bad. And I think that's because I like this idea that I got turned on to by Derek Alexander of Stop Skeletons from Fighting, that a piece of media being good or bad doesn't really matter so much as, is that piece of media interesting or uninteresting? Super Mario Bros. Is one of the most interesting video game film adaptations ever made. And I want to talk about it because I think it is very misunderstood. Now, I'm not going to go into the development of this movie because, number one, it's an extremely long story, and number two, it's already been covered extensively by other channels. I highly recommend the Gaming Historians video if you're interested, but the short version is, a script was written that was full of dark, mature themes of political satire, industrialization, brotherly love, and frustration, and this was the script that got all the talent to sign on. But then, a distributor came in, Buena Vista, whom you likely know better as Disney. And they demanded heavy rewrites to lighten the tone and make it more kid-friendly, which was done, even though it was now completely at odds with the sets that had already been built. This new, drastically different script was not given to the cast until the first day of filming, rightfully confusing and pissing everybody off. But the directors, husband and wife duo Rocky Morton and Jankel, decided to stay on the project to try and reclaim their original creative vision, which of course they could not entirely do. This creates a kind of tonal whiplash where the sets and props and costumes have this dark sort of cyberpunk look appealing to a teenage and young adult audience, and most of the writing is super jokey, corny, and at times just stupid, seeming more appropriate for kids. But this is not a kids' movie. So basically, it's a classic tale of studio interference. A tale as old as time, and sadly one that has not gotten any less common. But there are definitely remnants of Morton and Jankel's original vision, and you can sense that throughout the film. Whether or not it's a good creative vision is up to your own personal tastes, but I think it's important to see that vision and take it for what it is. And there's a version of the movie that gets a little closer to that vision. Allow me to introduce Super Mario Bros. The Morton-Jankel cut, a fan re-edit of the film based on an early work print cut that restores and adds in 20 extra minutes of footage from extended and deleted scenes. I believe this version is superior to the theatrical cut, though not dramatically so, but I do think most of the differences are positive, so this is the one I'm going to be specifically talking about and using footage from. Before we get into it though, one more thing that I think it's important to note. If you go into this movie expecting Super Mario Bros., you're going to be disappointed. I mean, why would you do that? Yes, it's called Super Mario Bros. Yes, it says it's based on the Nintendo games, but come on. These are Goombas, these are Sniffets, and this is Toad. Yeah, It really has nothing to do with the games at all, so it's best to view it as its own thing. Take the name Super Mario Bros. And erase it from your memory. Which I know sounds like the stupidest thing in the world, but this is so far away from the source material that the source material is barely relevant.
I agree.
So how about we finally discuss the actual movie? Like, what's the story here? Well, the film's plot can actually be a little hard to follow with all the talk of merging parallel dimensions and whatnot, but the important thing is that it's about blue-collar workers overthrowing a corrupt political regime. No, I am not joking. Reading into it too much? Maybe, but I am not joking. Mario and Luigi are portrayed as down-on-their-luck plumbers competing with the rival Scapelli Construction Company, which is implied to be mob-run.
Scapelli! They beat us to it again!
And the main villain, King Koopa, not Bowser, Koopa, is portrayed as a hilariously evil politician with way too much power who's not happy enough with his own realm, so he wants to extend his reach and control everything he possibly can. Just like real politicians. I am fully aware of how ridiculous I sound talking about this movie in this way, but at its heart, it is the underdog working man versus the corrupt elite. Mixed in with a magical meteorite shard, de-evolution guns, and a king turned into intelligent fungus. It's super offbeat and weird, but I think that's what makes me like it. One of my favorite bits of weird or bad dialogue is the scene where Toad just explains the whole split dimension and fungus king thing. Like it's just common knowledge. Like if anybody said anything like this in actuality, you would immediately call the police.
You know, according to history, a long time ago, big meteorite came and blasted our universes into parallel dimensions.
Yeah.
You know what else I think? You know, all that fungus out there, that's our old king. It's true, and he's been de-evolved. That's right, he's been de-evolved into fungus, and now he's wreaking his revenge on the city.
Like, oh yeah, all that fungus everywhere, of course that's our old king. And of course Kurt Cobain faked his death to become Rivers Cuomo. What do you mean, evidence? In general, though, I actually think the writing is pretty solid, all things considered. It's nothing award-worthy, but I've certainly heard far worse dialogue. And the Morton-Jankel cut preserves some of the political satire they wanted to be a central element.
Hey guys, what is all this Koopa the Blank stuff? Everywhere we look, you got Koopa the sportsman, Koopa the environmentalist, Koopa the Sudmice. Does anybody else run against this guy?
Koopa the Sensitive ran 4 years ago, but he only got 2%.
No, I'm talking about somebody else other than Koopa.
No, Koopa doesn't like that.
What you mean you can vote for anybody as long as it's Koopa?
What kind of system's that?
Democracy.
Some lines can be pretty awkward, but they mostly come from Luigi, who is purposefully written here as a giant idiot.
Aliens? Oh, we gotta deal with aliens too?
Luigi, we're the aliens!
Yeah? Whoa, cool!
Speaking of, let's finally talk about the casting, because I seriously think they knocked it out of the park, particularly with the big three. Starting with the man himself, Bob Hoskins was just the perfect choice for this Brooklyn as hell version of Mario, with a gravelly voice, wicked mustache, and he just has a wonderfully expressive face that can be intense and focused, but also gentle and loving. He has a great range.
What would you do without your big brother?
John Leguizamo was certainly an interesting choice for Luigi, considering the age difference between him and Bob Hoskins, but their chemistry actually ends up being really great, and they play off each other very well.
Well, you said the tunnel.
I did not. I said Parkway.
But you meant the tunnel. Hey, go on, pick a direction. Any direction you like. Hey, that looks good over there, huh? That's it, let's die there.
They actually feel like brothers with a big age gap between them. There's friction at times, but you know they love each other. Admittedly, I don't love John Leguizamo's Luigi quite as much as I love Bob Hoskins' Mario, but I think that's mostly just because Luigi's an idiot, and Leguizamo's performance is kind of obnoxious, but I think he does a good job overall as a young idiot kid. And as I said, he and Hoskins are just somehow a really great pairing as Mario and Luigi. Easily my favorite performance, though, is Dennis Hopper as Koopa, not Bowser, because it's what every good Dennis Hopper role is. Hilariously over the top, though not nearly as much as, say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 or Blue Velvet. Good lord, he is unhinged in Blue Velvet. Dennis Hopper has always been great at playing villain roles, though usually of the straight-up psycho variety. Here, he's comparatively much more reserved, but still endlessly fun to watch. I mean, he's an evil politician who knows he's evil and loves it. He's perfectly cast.
I'll kill you!
I'll meet you in the playground after school.
He gives himself lizard-like movements and these hilarious T-Rex arms when he's walking. Anytime he's on screen, your eyes are glued to him. He's also responsible for, like, all of the movie's best lines, such as, And of course,
Monkey!
and my personal favorite,
Plumbers. Plumber alert.
I think the main cast is genuinely fantastic, and outside of the main three, I have to give major props to Fiona Shaw as Lena. She is so good and a perfect match for the energy Dennis Hopper brings as Koopa. If he weren't here, I think she'd be a great solo villain, honestly. If Dennis Hopper's not chewing the scenery, Fiona Shaw is, and I live for it. Just look at how many costume changes she has. She has a new dress every scene, it feels like, while Koopa just mostly wears the same suit the whole movie, and good lord, look at that hair. Speaking of looks, have you seen this movie? Look at these sets, look at these animatronics, look at these one-of-a-kind CG effects. This movie is a visual feast. Production designer David Snyder did an amazing job building what they call Dino Hatton, most of which seems to be one giant set with all kinds of neon signs and storefronts decorating it. And once you realize David Snyder was also the art director of Blade Runner, things start to add up. The special effects as well are a real highlight, and were very technically impressive for the time. You have a good balance of practical and computer-generated effects, and honestly, I think a lot of the CG still holds up today, though it helps that it's super stylized. Oh, and never mind the coolest animatronic ever being in this movie. Just here, just casually, little Yoshi animatronic, actually capable of walking around, took 9 people to operate, no big deal. It's whatever. Patrick Tatopoulos was the creature designer, and I absolutely love what he came up with. Again, are they anything like the games? No. But are they cool in their own right? Very much so. I just look at the Goombas, and I can't help but marvel at the subtle facial movements and expressions, and match that stupid smile with my own. Finally, can we talk about the music? Because I really don't think it gets the credit it deserves either. The score was composed by Alan Silvestri, and if you don't think you know who that is, you definitely know who that is. Silvestri's always made liberal use of leitmotif in his scores, which I've always loved, and that tradition continues here, with the main theme that reflects the general fun attitude of the Mario Brothers. Yeah, it's not from the game, and that seems like a big missed opportunity, but again, in this movie, what is from the game? I think in general, that's what most people get hung up on when it comes to this movie. The fact that it deviates so heavily from the source material. I mean, little kids went to see this movie and were justifiably upset that it wasn't anything like their favorite video game, even though, again, it is not a kid's movie. So I understand the movie having the reputation that it does, but if you can look past that, I really, really think there's a lot to enjoy here. It's one of the most unique cinematic visions of the 90s. And if you want to see that unique cinematic vision for yourself, you can right now. Because did I mention that the Morton-Jankel cut is completely free to watch on the Internet Archive? I think it's definitely worth checking out, so I'll put a link in the description. And if you check out the movie, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about it. Do you agree with my opinions? Do you disagree with my opinions? Do you think my taste is completely cooked and belongs in the trash? I mean, I did just make a video about the Wii U, and now I'm defending this movie, so it's entirely possible. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and always remember, trust the fungus.
Trust the fungus.
They really wrote that. Someone actually, a professional screenwriter, wrote that line. I'm not saying the movie's perfect.